we go. What is up, YouTube? Check it out. So, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we are not working on the wagon this weekend. Instead, we're doing something much less exciting. We are working on my daily driver because today when I pulled it out to do work on the truck, or not to do work on the truck, to do work on the wagon, I found a coolant puddle under the truck. Turns out that the water pump that I had put in the truck 9 months ago started leaking coolant through a seam in the case, in the casting. Total debacle there, ruined my day as far as what I had planned. So, because I dug around in the shop a little bit and found the gas pedal for the wagon. This actually came in a box of parts for the wagon. Didn't even know I had it, but this is the factory gas pedal. It even got some good old hornet's nest going on in it, just like the rest of this car. It's how I know it was what belonged to this car. And I even found that in that same box was the little studs, these little guys, the little pivot ball studs that hold it in place. So I was going to see about putting that in so that we have more than the little stick down there. And I was going to address, hold on, let me put this down for a quick second. Come on, adjust. There we go. I was going to adjust the plate with the carburetor and see if we could fix the heat soak issue that we were having. All right, yeah, I picked you back up. You're back in the game. And if you watched the last video, which I highly recommend you watch it. It was a good time. I had fun making that video, and we did get the car out and get to enjoy it a little bit. Didn't get anywhere near as far as I wanted to because we were having an issue with the carburetor. The gas pedal was sticking. And there's a whole lot of things that can cause a gas pedal to stick, especially on a carbureted engine. If you have an older carburetor, or the bushings are worn out in the shafts, or the throttle linkage is no good, or your springs aren't set right. And initially, I was thinking it's got to be the springs, but pulling the air cleaner. Then after it progressively got worse and it was happening at all throttle locations, I kind of ruled out that it wasn't the springs, because the springs would have more of an effect on part throttle only, where there's not very much tension, and not so much in the full sweep of the throttle. And then so I thought about it, I was like, well, maybe the butterflies are binding up on something. But again, that typically is an issue when a carburetor is going to at full wide open. The butterflies will get open too far and maybe catch on the gasket or catch on the edge of the manifold. But this was having problems again at the full sweep of the throttle. So that kind of ruled out that part of it. And I started thinking about it, and over here on the red car, I had a similar problem that I fought on that car for a while, and it was super annoying. It took me a long time to get sorted out, and it ended up being a heat problem. With a brand new carburetor on there, it had that issue. And the carburetor that's on here, this AVS2, it's a pretty new carburetor. It wasn't brand new when I got the car, but I can tell that it's not. Oh, you're probably looking at my chest. I don't know why I did that. It's not old, put it that way. It doesn't have a whole lot of life use on it. I'm adjusting the camera. Oh, the mic fell. Hold on. All right, sorry, that probably made a weird noise. So here, check it out. The engine's cold right now. The car hasn't run since last weekend, okay? And with the engine cold, if you remember, I just had that clip up there where the throttle was sticking, right? And I just kind of fought to push it open, and it stuck open and would stick in different places throughout the sweep. Now, that was with the engine hot, right? So now with the engine cold, everything works just like it should. No binding, it goes to full throttle. The hose clamp on the radiator is grabbing my jacket, but yeah, we have no issues. Tension's all good. So I figure the problem here is going to be the same problem I fought on the red car. Is there's just too much heat getting up to the carburetor, right? And different metals expand at different rates. And I'm not an expert on these things, but I know that metals, when they get hot, they expand. And if there's too much heat getting into the carburetor, and there's a mix of different metals between steel, the aluminum casing, and even between the intake manifold aluminum and the carburetor aluminum, which are different grades of aluminum, guaranteed, they're going to expand and contract at different rates. So I'm almost certain what's happening is too much heat's getting into the carburetor, and it's just causing things to bind up. And that's exactly the kind of problem I fought with the red car, and that was with a Holley carburetor on a completely different intake. It was the same type of problem. So we're going to attempt to fix that using a half-inch spacer. And I did have that 4-hole phenolic spacer, right? I already had this, but because this is a dual plane, I want to run an open spacer, courtesy of Engine Masters. They did a whole episode, or multiple episodes, where they looked at performance of carburetor spacers, different thicknesses and behavior between 4-hole and open. And basically the general rule of thumb that they came up with on Engine Masters was that on a dual plane that is fully divided, an open spacer tends to have better performance than a 4-hole spacer as far as actual engine performance. And on a single plane, a 4-hole spacer tends to have better performance than an open spacer. And a lot of it has to do with how the pulses of the engine react in the carburetor and pulling fuel and air velocity and all those sort of stuff. I'm not going to get into the science of any of that because, one, I'm not an expert on any of it. Two, I have no way to prove any of it. But I do recommend, if you're interested in more of that, look up Engine Masters Carb Spacer episode or episodes. I might even look it up myself and pop the number of the episode somewhere up here on the screen to help you get there. But generally speaking, after that sort of stuff, I decided that the open spacer was a more appropriate choice for my application, and so I went with this one from Edelbrock that comes with new gaskets. And this is actually not even a phenolic spacer. This is a wood spacer. I'm sure it's got some resins and stuff like that in it to actually make the wood last longer, but that's way old school. Wood spacers go way back, old school stuff. So I was like, yeah, it's old school and it's a good choice. And the price was right on it. It was about $35 for a spacer with gaskets, and it comes with the correct length studs for installing that. We may still have a throttle linkage issue back here on the bracket that we'll have to address. Unfortunately, I don't get to do any of that this weekend because it's already 3 o'clock on Sunday. I spent yesterday doing Christmas lights on the house for the wife and some other stuff, and we went out last night for a work thing that she had going on, which was a great time. But in short, it's late Sunday afternoon. The truck that I need to drive to work tomorrow is currently tore apart in a bunch of pieces with no water pump in it. So I have to get back to putting that back together, which is just another boring LS thing on a motor that is, well, as you can see, just a bone stock, nothing special, 6-liter in a 2500 HD Silverado. So there's not really anything exciting about that worth putting on video. Although I do have one tip for you. If you find yourself doing a water pump, whether it's on a 6-liter or whether it's on a small block, if it's a water pump, or it could even be a Ford or a Mopar, if it's a water pump that's in the front of the block, put it that way. Anything that's got a water pump in the front of the block. A lot of times when you're doing your gaskets, your water pump gaskets, you want your sealing surface that's on your block to be clean and dry. That's how you put your gaskets on, clean and dry. When you have an application that you've drained coolant out of to install or change a water pump, it doesn't drain all the coolant out of the motor unless you pull a plug somewhere down low, and usually it drains right to the bottom of the water ports. So if you look down in here, let me adjust one more time real quick. Like right here, you can see that there's coolant right there. That's how far down it drained, to the bottom of that water port, because that's the lowest point that's opened up, which means I'm going to constantly have this spot right here, no matter how many times I wipe it off, unless I sit here and just try and soak a bunch of coolant out of that port, that's going to stay wet. And you don't want to install your gaskets wet. It's not ideal. It can work, and I have done it, but there's a trick to solving that that's super easy. Throw a floor jack underneath the front. After you've drained it, throw a floor jack under the front, jack the front end up about an inch. What that's going to do is it's going to change the angle of the motor. We'll do it this way. Change the angle of the motor from wherever it's at to an inch high in the front, which means the coolant that's still in the block is going to shift to the back of the block, and it's going to stop wanting to trickle out that front opening. So there's your hot tip for the day. Again, I'm sorry I don't have a more exciting video. That I wish I could have got the car out today. I had plans to work on it, fix a few things, to look at the wiring and see if we could figure out why the windshield wipers started randomly going while we were on the road last weekend. But none of that's going to happen because I got to put all this stuff back together on the truck and get that ready for work tomorrow. So that's going to do it. I guess unless I find something else exciting that'll follow after this that I don't currently know about, we'll see you guys next weekend. Hopefully I'll get some more work done on the car. We'll get back out on the road and have a good time. In the meantime, be sure to check out some of my other videos. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, show me some support. I'd love to have more time to do this sort of stuff, but adulting's in the way. And you know, if the channel could ever get big enough to get me out of having to have an adult job, then I'd be making this sort of content for you on a daily basis. I got plenty of projects to work on, just don't have the time. Speaking of, for any of those who haven't seen the shop tour, I mean, as you see or may have seen recently, most of the videos that we've been doing lately are all on the 65 Wagon, which is quite the bucket. Lots of stuff still to be done on that car. I've got my 62 Chev II that we started doing a gasser conversion on that's kind of stalled out. There's a reason for that. We've got the S10 back there, which it's got a very long history with me. I've had that truck for over a decade, and once upon a time it was really pretty, and it's not so pretty right now, and one day I'd like to put that back together. If you watched any of the earlier videos, you probably recall there being a blue car sitting there. I do still have the blue car, but this is not it. There's a different car here. So we have the blue car that is a 1963 Chev II four-door that I'd like to put together. It's just a driver. Probably going to have a small block in it because that's the easy way to go, but who knows, maybe we'll find something else exciting to put in there that's a little bit different. TBD, trying to do that car on the budget. So because four doors just don't have the value that some of them, like the Wagons or the two doors have. So I'm trying not to put out too much money in it and save up parts on the side and find good deals to put that car together. And then we have the project over there that's under the cover, which probably won't come out until sometime after the new year, just because I'm not ready to start on that yet, obviously. Anyway, yeah, so it's time for me to get back to work. Again, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm sorry it's not a more exciting video, but you know, sometimes that's just how it goes. So until next weekend.